Our next speaker is Charlie White from JPL, where he is a senior knowledge analyst, formerly a deputy chief knowledge officer, and in some circles also known as His Holiness Max Singularity.
Of course you would go there.
Charlie, all yours.
All right, thank you, George. All right, well, first off, it's my honor to present again here at the Caltech at the Cahill Center here. And we're going to finish up this conference with this talk, which is A Universe in the Metaverse, Real People, Real Feelings. So you can't have a good talk in my tradition without a quote from Feynman. And so in this case, my quote is, in talking about the impact of ideas in one field on ideas in another field, one is always apt to make a fool of oneself. Well, I think this is quite an apropos quote because I'm about to make a big fool of myself because I'm talking about multiple fields where I have some ideas. So I want to take you into my worlds. There are three worlds that I want you to join me in this journey. But first, in order to do that, I need to make a few disclaimers. And one, it's not my fault. As George said, I've been called the space pope, but I didn't do that myself. The players of EVE Online, which is made by a game company called CCP Incorporated, this happened, and it's quite a long story, but I'm not going to get into that story so much during this presentation. But my opinions do not reflect the CCP, although they often look to me as a spokesman. I am not a spokesperson for that company at all. And disclaimer number two, I'm coming to you today as a private citizen. I have worked for NASA and JPL for 35 years. I have seen things. I have done things with what I call the pyramid of experience. There's 4 sides to that pyramid. But today, I'm talking to you as a private citizen, not as a JPLer, because part of this policy is neither the US government, NASA, JPL, or Caltech shall endorse and recommend any commercial products, processes, or service. Well, I'm not going to endorse them either, but I'm definitely going to get very close to that edge. And so I'm coming to you as a citizen and not as a representative or a spokesperson for those entities. And disclaimer number 3, I've been outed recently by some of my management who says, hey, Charles, didn't you take a 747 to Burning Man? so I might as well come clean. Yes, I did. As a private citizen, I've also participated in my own radical self-expression at Burning Man. And part of that, among the many projects I've done, these are the 3 of my most proudest by far. I did create the Mars rover art car, which was a vehicle that could actually carry around 14 people around. We did bring the 747, which was a full-size 747, to Burning Man. But one of the things I'm most proudest of is I'm the co-founder of the Black Rock Observatory. And the Black Rock Observatory is where we brought a telescope to the desert to share the cosmos with everyone. So with all of that out of the way, all right, let's go. So again, I live in these multiple worlds at the same time, Burning Man, JPL, and virtual worlds. Why is there a baby there? I'll figure that out later. These worlds have collided. The Black Rock Observatory, the Mars missions, and all of this. I tried to keep them separate. I tried to keep an air gap between all of those, the virtual worlds and so forth. But they have a gravity of themselves, and they were attracted to each other. And so I couldn't avoid the collision that has occurred. But Burning Man, what have I learned about Burning Man? Well, Burning Man was really an amazing experience because what I learned from there is people have an amazing passion for what we do in space sciences. The joy on a person's face when they see Jupiter through a telescope or the rings of Saturn through a telescope for the very first time, and they realize that those photons came from the sun, bounced off that planet, and then ended up in the pupil of their eyes directly with nothing else in between but a mirror. It's amazing, it's inspiring, and you are connected to the cosmos in that very instant. And people often walk away with tears, real feelings. The money that people spend to go on astronomy and space-related vacations to see stars is a metric. That is a metric. We can actually quantify how much money is spent in space tourism or science tourism. So that's kind of what I learned from the Burning Man experience, where people, you go there thinking it's one thing and you end up going to a science talk at Burning Man, and people would line up. And they would walk over a mile, maybe 3 miles, into the deep desert to get to our observatory to look through that telescope. And they would stand in line for hours. Others also said, oh, this is such a great movement, and I have some astronomy experience, or I have no experience, but I want to be involved. Can I help? And yes, the Black Rock Observatory, even though I'm the co-founder, my hands are off. It's now running as its own independent organization with its own board of directors, and it's now self-sustaining. How can you value that? It's amazing, that level of participation. So in virtual worlds, I'm going to call this community, because this is where we actually started making friends inside this world. What's that baby doing there again? We'll figure that out later. Here's my avatar, and here's another avatar, Paradox Olbers. And Paradox once said, quote, I'm disabled, and I see maybe 2 people a year in my real world apartment. But in Second Life virtual world, I meet and know hundreds every day. That was Paradox. He was an amazing person. But what's interesting about the land that you are looking at in this slide right now was an organization, and this is where I met George, because it was called MICA, the Meta Institute for Computational Astrophysics. And quite honestly, I think George's idea was 15 to 2 decades ahead of its time. It's where astronomers from around the world would create an avatar, and we would virtually attend presentations. In this case, there's a PowerPoint slide about enriched halos and globular clusters. This was amazing. We traded knowledge, we shared knowledge within this virtual world. But as a result of that, we made connections. We made connections with real people in real time, even though we're looking at them through the face of an avatar. Well, the virtual world and my second life, that was the first gravities that came together, and that was the first collision. And I created basically a virtual JPL inside the second life. It's called Explorer Island. And I was asked to help create a couple of real-world facilities. One was the Astrobiology Center, another was the Mechanical Design Center, but the one I'm most proud of in this case is the Earth Science Center. So the Earth Science Center is located in building 264 on the ground floor of JPL. Very highly sought after real estate space. And it was being competed by a couple of missions and a couple of projects that want to use this space. Well, what we did is we used Second Life and our avatars to walk around inside. And as you can tell, I'm an immensely humble person, so I'm not going to brag about it myself. I'm going to let Tom Soderstrom do it for me.
I'm Tom Soderstrom, Chief Technology Officer for IT at JPL. And this, what you're going to see, is a room that was designed by Charlie White and others in the virtual world, in Second Life. So we wanted to take Second Life to First Life, and all of this was visualized and designed and redesigned and changed again in Second Life by Charlie and the team. And when they presented it to the people who would make the decisions on funding, etc., they were the discussion changed from when you saw just a blueprint to when you actually could visit it and see it. There were discussions such as, let's flip the projector this way, let us where are we going to store the chairs? You say, what chairs? So they, all of a sudden you realize that this would be a large room with multiple chairs, and it would have multiple use. It would have 3D display, and Charlie was able to model it in 3D so that you could see what it would look like. He was able to ask other avatars to come in and test it out, sit in it, try it, collaborate in it. And with all that, we were able to create a collaboration center that has now become a physical real center.
So Dan Goods did the color scheme on this. I did the layout of this. We were able to walk through it. And then this is an actual picture of the real world approval review. And Charles Alachi says, build it. We won. We beat out the people who had a PowerPoint presentation. We beat out the people who had blueprints. And this was my favorite quote. You can't feel blueprints. And you couldn't feel the PowerPoint. But you could feel your avatar actually walking through this world. And to this very day, the Earth Science Center exists at JPL, founded in a virtual world. But now I want to talk about a different virtual world, and this one goes much deeper. This is now a major part of my life, and this is a computer game called EVE Online. And EVE Online is a spaceship simulation that happens in a very, very far distant future in a totally different other galaxy. If this is, if the original galaxy is Adam, then that galaxy is Eve. And so the lore is very religious based, and that's how it got its name. That's why we call it EVE Online. And I had no choice, but I was given the title Space Pope by the players. But this game is 19 years ongoing. It's a persistent universe. It doesn't have an end to it. It contains 7,805 individual star systems, each with tens of dozens of planets and even more moons. So it's immensely huge. That's on the grid of their highway system of stargates. But here's the key. Here's its success. Players control the economy in EVE Online, and they control the geographic areas in the Outer Rim. Multiple Guinness Books of World Records have been achieved in EVE Online. The most number of players that have ever been in, human players who have ever been in a combined battle. And it has attracted millions of players over the years. And if you log into EVE Online right now, there could be anywhere from 20 to 30,000 people playing in this persistent universe at the same time within this giant virtual world. So to give you a little bit of an idea, let me play a few videos that kind of gives you just a hint. But you play as a capsuleer, and a capsuleer basically means you're in a lifeboat, which I'll show you here in a second.
You play as a capsuleer, a revered breed of highly trained pilot, having achieved immortality through the use of cloning technology. You navigate the universe encased in an armored capsule deep within your ship, where you have complete neural control and function as one.
So you're one with the spacecraft, and that capsule is your life pod. If your ship explodes, then they have a chance to destroy your pod. If your pod explodes, then you die, that body dies. But then you instantly clone into another body and you get to fight again. So this is my first character. This is Max Singularity before he became the Space Pope. He was an Amarian officer. And he would fly his favorite battleship, which was called an Apocalypse, which was huge. It's 1.2 kilometers long. And each person flies one ship at a time of various sizes. The largest ship is 13 kilometers long, and the smallest ship is about the size of a 747. We use Discord for our radio communications. And I'm going to play you a video here, and the recordings you are about to hear, every person you see on as a ship has a pod inside, and inside that pod is a person. These people can be anywhere in the world. So they can be in Canada, Japan, Germany, France, Australia, anywhere around the world, all at the same time, all sharing the same experience. So what you're going to hear is actual Discord communications of real players in real time.
Up success.
Yeah. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, having so much fun.
Oh yeah, such fun. It's almost done now. Like less than a week. Oh look. Okay, good.
Wow! Did not see that coming.
That is mixing cakes right there.
Not keeping silos down, not keeping silos down. Go, 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 silos down. Portal, portal, primary.
Gate is green, gate is green. Cyber skills to congratulate BSC. And we got idle and green, come on.
Oh shit, how do I work this thing?
E-War Jones, all E-War Jones on Scott.
Why are you decloaking?
Ah, so will be the secondary. Oh my god, that's exciting!
Let's go get those fucking bombs out. Red group fire. Gold group stand by. Come on, boys. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah! Yeah!
Wow. Okay. These are real emotions. These are real feelings. These are people. If you've ever been in a near-miss car accident and your hands are shaking from the adrenaline, this is what we feel as pilots flying this shared experience in space. It's actually so bad you can't control your ship sometimes because your hands are shaking so hard. It's that I was there. I've actually been in pubs with fellow pilots talking about war stories, and people were like, "Were you in Afghanistan?" Like, no, we were in Jeddah near the Amar systems. We were engaged in battle. Never mind. Because those are the real feelings that we had. But Eve is more than just a game in a virtual world. It crosses over into the real world. And this is where I'm going to make this fantastic claim. Eve is probably the most important video game in the world. Now, with this audience, I have to back up that claim with data, and I'm going to attempt to do so. So here we go. Eve Online has a look and a feel about it, but one of the connections was this is a two-part story. Part one, how does the real fashion industry affect Eve Online? And so we were in collaboration, we as the players and the company and so forth, with Nicola Formichetti, who's a fashion designer, and we had a two-way collaboration with him.
What the digital world allows designers to do is to break free from those chains of conforming to the tools that they have in the real world.
You know, with this technology, possibility is endless. So, you know, when you have less limit, you become more creative.
With the digital world, you can do whatever you want. I mean, if you're a creative designer, you're only limited by how creative you are.
If we look at the state of affairs today, where audiovisual technology of computer games has really started to approach what we see in the real world, then it becomes similarly important to take cues from the fashion world on what to do with all that technology.
Because Eve is thousands of years in the future, we would like to create fashion collections that are inspirational to people that live in today's society. And even though we are inspired by trends that go on in today, we would like to push the boundaries and create fashion that is something that is cutting edge and forward thinking, similar to the technology that we are using.
Part two of this story is, how did Eve Online affect the real world?
CCP has the most advanced technology out there, which is carbon technology. We are able to completely mimic the cloth simulation that happens within fabric. Really, I call it digital couture, or it's elegant technology. You know, it matches the level of high fashion.
From a designer point of view, obviously making the clothing in this kind of way is very, very useful, because now you can do variation of this, different colors, different, you can just, with click of a button, you can probably do different things. So that's great.
It opens up a new window to step outside the box and to explore into the other realms. It's just a different experience, I guess.
To explore into other realms is a different experience. And so this is where we start entering the realm of art and virtual worlds as well. And so I have a friend of mine, Rix Javix, and Rix, as you can tell, some of the players here are kind of older. It's not your stereotypical kids, at mom's home playing. They're in Eve, it's a generation of players who are in their 30s to 70s. So it's quite an older group. And one of those players, Rix Javix, is an artist on the side. He did this poster on the side that shows a capsuleer suspended in the fluid connected to the ship's pod. It's one of my favorite illustrations of the Eve universe. But I asked him via Facebook, I said, what is the most expensive item you've sold at auction? And he had a couple. One was $7,500 for a private commission. It is on display at the player's company. However, no one is allowed to see it, so I'm not going to show that one to you. But I asked him also, are there others? And he said, yes, there's some that he received $5,000 for 3 pieces. And I can show you those 3 pieces. Now, the artwork varies, but these are all hand-line drawings. These are not computer models. These are hand-line drawings. And they're made into production prints. And they're sold in like our fine art galleries that are available. And so these 3 images, and oh, there's my favorite, the apocalypse. That was done, and people paid for this. And this one, an individual one, sold for $2,500. Well, why would anyone pay for art of fictitious spaceships? Well, the answer is because it's worth it to them. Why do you pay for a Rembrandt? Why do you pay for a Picasso? It's worth it. It's worth it to you. And so I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question that I'm going to answer. Why do you pay so much to be here in this audience, to be on this trip? Why do you pay to go on a vacation? Well, you pay for experience. You pay for the activity and what's happening. So whether the world is real or whether it's virtual, we blur those lines between those 2 worlds, and you get the same experiences, or you get an equivalent feeling of those experiences. And the art has even been formalized. It's not just home collectors. Actual museums like the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, has now a video wall exhibit about EVE Online. That's a permanent exhibit. And I just recently got a rumor that there is an exhibit at the London V&A Museum as well. So this aspect of the real world making art of a virtual world is quite impressive in itself. But then, like I said, EVE might be the most important video game in the world, because there are actual PhDs who have done their thesis studying EVE Online. So I went to Google Scholar, I simply typed EVE Online economics, and I was able to come up with 122,000 results in a microsecond there. EVE Online as a potential microeconomic model, and also in various others where you talk about identity and leadership in EVE. And there's actually military academies that are studying EVE Online for their human behavior aspects and for strategy and tactics. There are economists who, because you are able to manipulate the market, there are professors that assign students accounts, and they can go in and manipulate the markets at JITA and Amar, and you can actually see measurable results. And then they study that and write papers on that. But we've also entered the realm of citizen science. We've mapped the Human Protein Atlas and exoplanets, and we've even done work with COVID-19. So some of you in the audience might represent this fellow. Dr. Mayer was the first person to discover an exoplanet in 1995. And he collaborated with JPL players to start looking at the wavelengths and the optic dropout when a planet calls in front of a star. And so we can measure that. So with all the data that we have from all the telescopes, we were able to synthesize that and have players start doing the predictions, which was more than AI could do at the time. And these were done with the University of Reykjavik, University of Geneva in Switzerland did the human protein analysis. And so these were real universities actually spending time into this research. But I think one of the things we can be most proud of also is when the pandemic first hit, we scrambled 426,000 of our players to crunch about 500 years of mind-numbing data crunching to start mapping out COVID-19 and the borders of the proteins that make up that virus. And again, this was in collaboration with the British Columbia Cancer Research Center, the Regal Amelia School of Medicine, University of Pennsylvania, University of Modena, not Moderna, Modena, and the McGill University. So this was real-world collaboration in a game. It's amazing. But the virtual world, I talk about that baby there again. One of the things we have done also is the players have been very generous. I support a charity called Able Gamers, and this is where we take players who have no limbs, no arms, and they're able to move a mouse with their head, or limited sight, or limited mobility, or limited hearing, and so forth. And there are companies that are making devices so they can play EVE Online. And so we also raise money for disasters that have occurred around the world over the years. Since 2005 to 2022, even up to the Ukraine war, the players have raised $1.2 million. But the question is, why? Why do they do this? Now remember the talk of remember the title of my talk. The title is Real People, Real Feelings. We have these feelings. We're brought into this virtual world. And again, dollars is a metric of what we're putting into this world. But how are we also having, what keeps this going for 19 years? Well, we've done some studies into that too. What we found is friendship is actually a mathematical equation. And it consists of proximity, frequency, duration, and handshaking intensity.
Intelligence. I mean, obviously, you guys know this. Like, intelligence is gathered from making friends and enemies. So, proximity, frequency, duration, and most importantly, intensity. This is where EVE Online shines. Whether it's PvP shakes or feeling that somebody has your back, this is really the reason why this game keeps on going. And the relationships are many formed. I used to have to marry people myself. Now the Pope does it. Thank you, Pope.
Welcome, Holden. So in a virtual world, it is about the real people and the real feelings. And why that baby? Well, I was asked to dress up as the space, well, no, that ain't how it. I was given the title Space Pope by the players. And then I dressed up as a Space Pope at one of the cosplay seminars, and that changed everything. There's more to this story, but a short version is people started writing me letters to marry them, and I did. But the one that touched me the most was I had a family write me, a father and a mother said, "Dear Space Pope, we're about to have a baby. Can you send us a blessing?" And I was shocked. I was like, well, I could troll this. I can, make something funny and just send it back. But they were serious. And so it caused me to stop and think about, what do I do? And so I started thinking, well, am I qualified to give a blessing? And after a lot of contemplation, I was like, yeah, you know who is qualified to give blessings? Each and every one of you. We all have that ability to use kind words, to choose the right phrases, and to be a better person and to share that. And so I sent them a very heartfelt blessing for their baby. So that's why I include a baby on there.
I've met a lot of people from all across the world.
Flying with the same guys for almost 10 years.
It's such an amazing bunch of people.
That's my favorite part of the game. Basically the crew, all the good lads.
You may want to hit your brother, knock him around a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're all a bunch of brothers and sisters.
It's this amazing group of friends.
It's a passion for everyone that I play with.
The friends you make. It's the people. The people are awesome.
Love the people that play the game.
It's the people. These are my friends. So there you are. Those are my three worlds. They have all collided together. So I am fortunate that I get to live in this world, but I also get to live among the stars. I have traveled through nebula. I've explored remote moons of other star systems clear across another galaxy. And I've made connections with people who also live there. So we are all seeking a better future. Some of us are sharing a common reality together. And in virtual worlds of real people and real feelings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie. Would you care to say a few words about how you became a Space Pope?
Oh boy, that's a little heavier and deeper subject. Still gets me every single time. In 2014 and 2017, I'm actually going to turn up the background music here a little bit. I lost seven friends to suicide. So it's not that the gaming community is a victim of this any more than any other community, because those 7 friends were co-workers at JPL, Burning Man people, friends, and gamers. The statistics are no different. But when I would hear over Discord or comms or in real life, someone who had these symptoms, their cat died, their mom hates them, nothing is going right, the world is better without them, I now stop and I answer that call. I started doing that with a lot of other people. First it was 10, and it was 40, and it was hundreds. And now I don't keep tabs of the numbers. But now there's many people out there who have sent me letters that have said, I saved their life. I created an organization called the Sixth Empire with my friend. I co-founded it with my friend in the UK, Rhiannon Ferry Red. And that's what this symbol is. This is the Sixth Empire of my worldwide organization, where we have about 300 members. And now we all do the same thing. We are not trained counselors. We just simply stop and listen. And so we role play this game as this religious entity, and it was the players that gave me the title. I'm not just an admiral, he's the space pope. That's my connection to New Eden. And there are hundreds of people in this world that are remaining in this world. There are even people, there's 5 people in this world who feel so strongly about that they have this symbol tattooed on their body as a lifelong reminder. What do I do with that? How do I process that a logo I made on a computer is now tattooed on the physical body of people? You want to ask me, what effect does the virtual world have on real people? That's the darker story. And that's the lighter story, because it brings me joy as well as tears. This is my life in that virtual world. Enter if you dare. You enter into Eve, we will shoot you in the face. But then we'll have a glass of wine and we'll laugh about it at the same time. Because that's how we fight in Eve. We are enemies and we are friends. God dang it, George, why do you keep doing this to me?